My wife lied about our kids' father, claiming they were mine. A DNA test revealed the truth. She had been cheating for years. I took my revenge. Her world collapsed, and now she regrets betraying our marriage. My world shattered the moment I heard his name whispered in her sleep. My wife, the woman I thought was my soulmate, was carrying another man's children. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was an act that would set off a chain reaction, ending with a shocking twist that no one, especially the man she left me for, ever saw coming. Hi, I'm Mark Adams. And believe me, this story is wilder than anything you could imagine. Before everything went to hell, let me tell you a bit about myself and Jennifer, my ex-wife. I'm a pretty active guy, 5 feet 10 inches, 180 pounds of mostly muscle. I run, swim, hit the gym, even dabble in martial arts. People have even told me I look a bit like George Clooney, which, I won't complain about. Brains-wise, I've got a master's in computer tech, another degree in business management, and a bachelor's in economics, all from Oxford. My dad was at the US Embassy over there, and I just stayed to finish up. Now I run my own computer repair business, but the real passion project is this new software I'm developing. It's going to be a game changer, from gaming to military applications, solving real-time problems. I'm maybe 6 months to a year out from finishing it. I also have an amazing younger sister, Patricia, or Patty. We're super close, share everything, no secrets. She's a junior partner at a big law firm in New York. Then there's Jennifer. Jen, my ex. She's 5 feet 3 inches, 110 pounds, and kept herself in great shape at the gym. She had this lovely face, a bright smile, striking red hair, and green eyes. Jen had a law degree too, working as a corporate lawyer at a PR and advertising firm. We met at Patty's graduation party. Patty and Jen's sister, Amy, were roommates, and they introduced us. Turns out, we lived only 3 miles apart in a smallish town in Texas called Freestone. We just clicked, 6 months later, we were married. She started as a junior attorney, decent salary, bonuses. I was working with software code for a flight controller company, good income, bonuses too. We lived in this nice 3-bedroom house my grandparents left me. Jen's family was in New York, mine retired to Florida, but we always got together twice a year for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Life was good. We were happy, good jobs, nice cars, vacations twice a year. We were building something. Then, after 2 years, Jen got promoted to junior partner. That's when things started to change. She began working later, going out with her friends almost every weekend. This uneasy feeling started gnawing at me, a real gut punch. I know it sounds paranoid, but I started looking, checking her emails, her belongings. I even followed her one night, but everything seemed normal. She didn't even dance with anyone else. So what was it? I realized it wasn't about another man, not yet. It was about her. Jen loved her job, wanted to be a senior partner before we even thought about starting a family in 5 years. Me? I felt stuck. My job was a family business where only family got promoted, no matter how good you were. I was spinning my wheels. So, I decided to start my own computer repair company, focusing on business systems and security. I knew it would be slow at first, but eventually, I'd make more money than I ever could at my old job. I sat down with Jen, laid out my plans. Told her the first year would be tough, but it would pay off. I kept my secret project, the big software, under wraps to avoid complicating things. But Jen was against it. Why take risks when things are stable? She asked. What she meant was, she was doing well, while I was stuck. We always kept our finances separate, just a joint account for bills, an equal contribution. But I was done being stuck. I quit my job, used my savings, even took a loan on the house. Rented a small workshop, started advertising. Within 3 months, I was breaking even. And my secret project? That was moving along nicely too. Then, one evening, Jen hit me with a surprise. She was 3 months pregnant. Twins. My mind immediately flashed back to a week she'd spent in Miami for work. A cold dread started to spread. After she told me, she became hesitant about intimacy, claiming it was for the baby's safety. I tried to reassure her, even had our doctor talk to her, but she was firm. Still, I supported her. Went to relaxation classes, helped with her mood swings, tried to be the best husband I could be. Meanwhile, my business was thriving. I hired Greg, a recent college grad, and May as a receptionist. I never talked much about work with Jen. She just didn't seem interested. One afternoon, I was with a client discussing server upgrades when I got an urgent call. Jen was having the baby. Right now. I excused myself, rushed home. I'd been expecting this for weeks, so I was prepared. She was ready to go, bag packed. I helped her into the car, grabbed her bag, and yeah, a DNA kit. Then, straight to the hospital. The doctor said it would take some time, so they put her in a private room. Despite my churning doubts about the twins' paternity, I was still so excited to become a father. The doctor suggested I go home and rest, they'd call when it was time. I went home, thrilled, ate something, and dozed off. The hospital called at 2:30 a.m. Jen was fully dilated, contractions every 7 minutes. I threw on a coat, raced to the hospital. A nurse rushed me to the delivery room. Just in time, the doctor said. I watched as our first baby was born. Then, a second. The nurse confirmed they were healthy. And quietly, I collected swabs from each child for the DNA test. I felt a connection to them, but I needed to know. I went to Jen, shared a gentle moment. I noticed a flicker of sadness in her eyes as she told me she loved me. Then they asked me to step out while they moved her to recovery. The next day, I called everyone with the wonderful news. Grandparents were thrilled, Patty and Amy planned to visit soon. I brought Jen a big bouquet of flowers on my next visit and dropped off the DNA kit. They said results would take about 10 days. The doctor told me Jen needed to stay a bit longer due to complications. I visited every day, but she was distant, barely spoke. The doctor assured me it was normal, she'd feel better. Friday, they said she could go home Saturday afternoon. I had the nursery ready, counting down the hours. Saturday morning. Everything was perfect. I went to the hospital to pick them up. But Jen's room was empty. My heart plummeted. I asked the nurse where my wife and children were. She told me they'd already left. With another man. Confusion, then panic. I called Jen's phone, no answer. The head nurse got involved, security was called, then the police. 2 detectives arrived, a man and a woman. They took me to the security room. The footage showed Jen leaving willingly with the man. They wouldn't tell me who he was. Just told me to go home, they'd call. I sat in my cold, empty house, anxious, sick to my stomach. Later that evening, a knock. The same detectives. I let them in, but they wouldn't meet my eyes. What's happening? I asked. The woman spoke, her voice flat. Mr. Adams, your wife and children are safe. I'm sorry to inform you, but your wife has decided to leave you and has taken the children with her. She asked us to let you know her attorney will contact you soon. Please don't do anything rash. I wouldn't want to have to take you in. Then they left. I was alone. The words hung in the air, a physical weight. My hands shook. I started to cry, uncontrollably. I felt utterly lost. Sunday morning, after finally falling asleep, I woke up. Showered, got dressed, made breakfast. Just going through the motions. I called Jen's parents, hoping they'd heard something. Her dad answered, excited about their visit next weekend. I choked out what happened. He was shocked, said he'd call Jen. Around lunchtime, I went to Denny's, ordered a huge meal, burger, fries, onion rings. Just trying to fill the void. Went home, no messages. TV on, but I wasn't watching. Just replaying it all. After midnight, I gave up trying to sleep and went to bed. My mind raced. No rest. I was up at 6 a.m., showered, downstairs for breakfast. Watching the news, wondering what to do next. Then, the phone rang. Jen's lawyer. Could I come to a meeting later today? 2 p.m. Maybe I'd finally get some answers. At his office, they took me straight in. I expected just the lawyer. But there, on the sofa, were my wife and her boss, Carl Prescott. That cold dread was back, but now it was laced with a burning anger. I wanted to scream, but I stayed silent, let someone else speak first. My silence made them uneasy. The lawyer cleared his throat. Mr. Adams, I have called you here to talk about the terms of your divorce from Mrs. Jennifer Adams. Your wife and Mr. Prescott proposed that she divorce you due to irreconcilable differences. You would keep the house, your retirement savings, and your business. She would keep her things, but you would also sign a document allowing Mr. Prescott to adopt your children. In return, Mr. Prescott will deposit $2 million into an account of your choosing. My blood ran cold. I stood up, almost knocking over the desk. The sheer audacity. There is no way I will agree to this. You can keep Jen. I don't want anything to do with her. Jen stood up, her voice sickeningly calm. Mark, I never wanted to hurt you, and I'm truly sorry for the pain I've caused. I've been seeing Carl for some time now, and we want to be together. Carl cannot have children, so he wants to adopt ours. The kids would have everything they need. A nice home, a good education, and a great life. What can you give them? An old house and a small repair shop? You think I want out because you're struggling and don't have any plans for the future? Please consider the kids. If you don't sign, I will ensure you face serious consequences. Losing your home, part of your income, your savings, and potentially not seeing your children again. This way, you at least get something. Absolutely not, Jen! I shot back, my voice shaking with rage. That house is mine, and you have no claim to it. I have hardly any savings, so taking half won't affect me much. You make more money than I do, so any support payments would be minimal. I'm willing to support my children, even if I only see them on weekends. And without me, my business won't survive, which makes it clear there's nothing for you to take. See you in court. I turned and walked out, leaving 3 stunned faces behind me. I headed straight to Denny's again, ordered dinner and a drink. The anger was still boiling. After eating, I drove back to my cold, empty house. Sat down with a drink, staring at the TV. It was after 11 p.m. when a knock startled me awake. Still drowsy, I foolishly opened it without checking. The door swung open hard, sending me stumbling back, but I caught myself. 3 men rushed in, trying to grab me. My mind snapped to full alert. I pushed back, the first guy recoiled. The second tried to subdue me. Fighting to break free, I felt a sharp impact on my leg, and I went down. The first man was still struggling while the other 2 were on me. Disoriented, vision blurring, I worried I wouldn't make it. I wanted to leave evidence. The leader pulled me close, hissed. Now be compliant and sign the form, or we'll return. Sign the form? Carl. That slimy bastard. With a last surge of defiance, I shoved him away, sending him staggering. I slid down the wall, my awareness fading as I fought to stay conscious. Next thing I knew, vague voices. Blurry shapes. Darkness again. The next time I woke, bright sunlight streamed through the window. A woman sat in an armchair reading. It took a moment for my fogged brain to recognize her, Cam, my MMA coach Phil Wright's wife. I tried to speak, but my throat was so dry, only a croak came out. Cam noticed, pressed the call button. A nurse came, checked my vitals, smiled. How do you feel? She asked. Another croak. Moments later, she returned with ice chips. Tasted like heaven. Cam held my hand, making a call with the other. Glad to see you're awake, Mark. You gave us quite a scare. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck. She laughed. Well, a truck might have done less damage. Just then, a doctor entered. Happy to see you finally woken up. You were in a coma for 3 days, but it looks like you're on the right track now. Do you think you could eat something? I could eat a whole cow if I had to. Everyone laughed, but when I tried, it hurt so much I nearly fainted. The doctor adjusted my pain meds, showed me how to use the button for extra relief. I rested, sleepy from the medicine, for what felt like hours but was only an hour or so. Phil walked in. He filled me in. I'd been hurt at home. The neighborhood watch saw my front door open, came to check. Found me on the floor, called an ambulance and police. They found Phil's number in my emergency contacts. He or Cam had been by my side ever since. I had broken bones, serious damage. Otherwise fine, he said, and I tried to laugh, but it turned into a cough. Still, the pain wasn't as bad. Once the doctor said I was out of danger, Cam and Phil left for a bit. Detective Graham Coles came in, asked about the incident. I told him everything, especially the attacker's message. Signed the form. He was particularly interested when I mentioned a DNA sample on my handkerchief. He carefully packed it as evidence. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, it was dark, and he was gone. The next day, Phil visited. Offered me to stay at his place when I got out. I asked him to collect my mail from home, and he agreed. I also asked if he knew any good lawyers for my divorce. He said he did. We talked more, but I drifted off again. Woke when a nurse changed my dressings. Everything looked good, no infection. Soon after, my meal arrived. Eating one-handed was tricky, so the nurse helped cut my food. Good night's sleep, woke up refreshed. The nurse helped me wash up, no embarrassment. Then Phil brought a lovely woman in. "Mark, this is Grace Miles, your new lawyer." We discussed my situation. She assured me I still had rights, especially to see my children, and would take my case. After she left, Phil handed me the mail. As I went through it, I found the DNA results. At first, I was upset. Then, a wild, disbelieving laugh bubbled up. Neither child was mine. Not mine. Which meant Jen had been unfaithful to me, and Carl too. What a surprise. Once I stopped laughing, I explained everything to Phil, and he burst out laughing too. I called Grace. Asked her to set up a meeting with Jen, Carl, and their lawyer at the hospital. I had changed my mind. I wanted to talk settlement. She set it up for the next day, in a borrowed office. The look on Jen's face was unforgettable when Phil wheeled me into the office. My arm and leg in casts, tubes connected to my body, my face showing the clear signs of what I'd been through. Jen looked utterly shocked. "Carl?" He just smirked. I faced them. My voice was low, but every word was deliberate. "After a visit from some of your associates, Carl, I have changed my mind. Don't pretend you didn't set this up." The last words said to me were, "Sign the papers." "Why would anyone else say that unless you sent them?" I continued. "My lawyer has created a new document for me to sign, which allows you to adopt the children, but without the $2 million incentive. My lawyer explained that your document made it seem like I was selling the children, which could have led to serious legal trouble for me. So, nice try." I handed the document to their lawyer, who looked visibly uneasy. "My lawyer and I have put together a new proposal for you to review. It's all in here." Grace handed the file to their lawyer, and copies to Jen and Carl. "This agreement," I said, "is very different from your proposal. Let me break it down for you. I keep my house and everything in it, including my wife's jewelry, my savings, my business, and both cars. She will also deposit the amount in her secret account, which is about $18,000, into my lawyer's trust account." "You can't do that. That money is mine. I earned it," Jen exclaimed, her face flushing. Carl gave her a strange look, like he didn't know about her secret account. That was the first crack in their perfect facade. Carl gently pushed her back into her seat, still smirking at me. "Be quiet. You're not part of this conversation right now." Everyone else was trying to hold back smiles, except Phil, who was quietly chuckling. Jen turned pale but stayed silent. "Anyway, as I was saying," I continued, "since she earns more than I do, she will also provide spousal support of $2,500 a month into my lawyer's account. Also, regarding the company you both work for, this is compensation for the role you played in breaking up my marriage and for what I've endured. I need you to pay me $10 million after tax into my lawyer's account. You'll also cover all my medical bills, legal fees, and the costs for my future care. My lawyer will decide the total amount. This all needs to be done by 5 p.m. this Friday." Carl just stood there, laughing hard. "You're out of your mind. Why should we pay you anything? We got what we wanted, so leave us alone. I'm asking for 20%. "What?" I said 20%. "I heard you, but what does that mean? That's how much money you might lose in the first 2 years after a legal case associated with your company regarding my marriage and the custody of my children. Did you just make that figure up?" "No," I said, my voice cutting through his arrogance. "I looked into your clients and what they pay. It's all public information, so it's easy to verify. Just think about how this will affect your father's campaign for Congress. He's running on family values. Plus, you have many notable clients. If they catch wind of any scandal, they'll leave you in a heartbeat. Then there's your advertising side, with children's clothing stores, a baby product company, a sportswear brand. They will distance themselves quickly if things go wrong. When it all falls apart, there will be a board meeting, and you'll be the one taking the blame. So you see, $10 million is a small price to pay." Suddenly, Carl's smirk vanished. He looked worried, truly worried. "My lawyer will send you the total amount, and it better be in her account by Friday at 5 p.m. Everyone was silent. Carl was still contemplating his options. So I kept going. "Oh, and Carl, if you think disappearing will help, think again. I've shared the whole story with 5 lawyers out of state. If anything happens to me, they will report it. I saw it then, the defeat in his eyes. As we walked out, I called back. 5 p.m., Friday. Once we were back in my room, Grace asked why I had changed my mind about Carl adopting the children, especially since I'd been so against it. I handed her the DNA test results. After looking at them, she started laughing. You sly trickster! The kids aren't yours. Whose are they? I don't know, but I plan to find out. This shows she was unfaithful to me and Carl at the same time. And when I find out, I will ensure Carl finds out too. Mark, I really wouldn't want to get on your bad side. You should have been a lawyer. You would have excelled at it. Thanks, but I don't have that strong drive. Actually, you do, she replied with a knowing smile. You just haven't needed to use it yet. The doctor said I could go home the next day if I had someone to help me. Phil and Kem offered, and I gratefully accepted. I still had to go to the hospital twice a week for checkups and bandage changes. Friday came, and I waited eagerly for 5 p.m. I didn't need to worry. At 3:30, Grace called. The money was in my account. $10,861,312. I was doing well, financially, much better than before. Grace had already taken her share, moved the rest into my checking account. Life moved on. After 8 weeks of care at my friend's place, I returned to my house. But it felt lonely. Empty. Sad. I decided to move closer to the person I cared about most, my sister Patty. Back at work, I called May and Greg for a meeting. Explained I needed a fresh start. They understood. I thanked them for their incredible work while I was gone. Then, I surprised them. I gave them ownership of the business, along with all the earnings they've made in my absence. Took them both to dinner, said my goodbyes. Next, I visited Phil and Cam. Took them to dinner and gave them a check for $500,000 to cover my care. They tried to refuse, but I explained Carl's company had to pay for my care, so it was his money, not mine. They accepted. Over wine, I told them I was leaving for New York. Phil fidgeted, then hesitantly asked what I'd do with my house. I said I'd probably rent it out. He explained his oldest son, Eric, an engineer, had a job, but his girlfriend was expecting, and they needed a place. He asked if I'd consider renting it to them. I was glad to help. Told Phil to set the rent based on what they could afford. I didn't need the money, they could save it for the baby's education. Cam embraced me warmly. Phil had tears in his eyes. The next day, I called Patty, told her everything, and asked if I could stay with her until I found my own place. She was ecstatic, already making plans. 3 weeks later, I closed the door of my old house for the last time. A little sad, I drove to Phil's, dropped off the keys. I also gave him the title for Jen's car, a gift for his son's new home. We hugged, said our goodbyes, promised to keep in touch. I arrived at Patty's place after a 2-day road trip. She hugged me tightly until I gently reminded her to let go. She showed me to my room, then told me we were going out for a casual dinner with a friend. Slacks and a shirt. We'd meet her at the diner. When we got there, I realized it was a setup. Waiting at the table was Jen's sister, Amy. I was surprised, but I couldn't stay mad at Patty. So I just went with it. Amy stood up, hugged Patty, then unexpectedly hugged me too. She expressed her discontent with Jen and hoped for fairness. Amy lived nearby, worked in accounts at an advertising agency. The night turned out well. Amy was the first to pull me onto the dance floor. We waltzed, enjoyed the music. Patty smiled at us when we got back. You two looked great together out there, just like a couple. Amy turned red, and I quickly excused myself. I danced with both Amy and Patty for the rest of the evening, skipping the more intimate dances. At the end of the night, we called cabs. At home, I teased Patty for encouraging a connection, but she just laughed and went to bed. The next day, we went house hunting. I didn't want an apartment. I'd grown fond of a house, a yard, barbecues. I was shocked by the prices near New York City. Had to spend more than I expected. After a few weeks, I found a 3-bedroom starter home in a safe community with a security guard, a pool, gym, play area, even a babysitting service. Patty loved it, joked about moving in. Before I settled in, I had to furnish and decorate. Amy and Patty were amazing at helping me choose everything, giving the place a warm, welcoming feel. I set up one room as my office, high-end computer, workbench, cabinets, a safe. Patty and Amy insisted on a housewarming party. Since I didn't know many people, the house was filled with their friends. It worked. I connected with several guests, quickly adding them on social media. The next few weeks were packed with parties and barbecues. I found myself enjoying this new attention, hardly thinking about Jen anymore. During this time, Amy and I grew closer, becoming more than just friends. One night, I was supposed to take Amy and Patty to the theater, but Patty canceled last minute. Not feeling well. So Amy and I went alone. While watching The Taming of the Shrew, Amy surprised me by holding my hand. It was a sweet gesture after only friendly interactions. After the play, we took a cab back to Amy's apartment. As I walked her to her door, the cab drove off. I complained about having to walk home. Amy laughed. "Well, in that case, you should stay the night." She smiled warmly, took my hand, and led me inside. Once there, she playfully asked, "What does a girl have to do to get you to make a move? I've waited long enough." She changed into something more comfortable, and I followed her lead. We were both excited and nervous. Then, in an instant, we found ourselves sharing an intense, overwhelming connection. It had been so long since I'd felt such a bond. I fell onto the bed, breathless and happy, like I'd just accomplished something significant. After I recovered, I said, "That was amazing. Now it's my turn to make you feel great." I gently laid her on the bed, began to express my feelings. She seemed to enjoy it, excited by my attentiveness. I continued to explore our connection, feeling her response, enjoying every moment. As things progressed, she responded warmly, and I held her close until she relaxed. She looked into my eyes. "What just happened? I've never felt that way before. My sister must be crazy to give you up, but I'm so glad she did. I might want to keep you here for a while." We relaxed in each other's embrace, connecting deeply. I gently touched her hand, feeling her happiness grow. We shared tender moments, both feeling that joy. After a while, she mentioned wanting to take things further, and we shared a beautiful connection, taking our time, enjoying each moment. Eventually, we fell asleep peacefully in each other's arms. We woke up the next day. It was already afternoon. We needed food more than anything. We went to a nearby deli for lunch and coffee. Back at Amy's apartment, we talked about what had happened. Amy admitted she'd been attracted to me from our first meeting, had even envied her sister. After my breakup, she confided in Patty, and they'd hatched this plan to bring us together. Patty was thrilled, thought I'd be interested once I got over my ex. I explained I liked Amy from the moment I met her, but didn't want to be disrespectful to my wife's sister. I appreciated her understanding of my hesitation. She confessed waiting was difficult, so she and Patty had planned this night. We both laughed. Amy sent a message to Patty, confirming their plan had worked. I was still in last night's clothes, so Amy took me to my place to change. She was so different from Jen, which made me feel at ease. No worrying about her getting upset or starting arguments over small things. We just clicked. Patty noticed it too, and seemed truly glad for us. Meanwhile, my secret project was finally done. This program and hardware could be adjusted for so many uses: military, gaming, aviation, even cars. I reached out to a top gaming company to test my work. At first, they were doubtful, thought they had the best programmers. But after I showed them my approach, they asked for a 3-month trial. I supplied them with a special, tamper-proof unit. After the trial, they called a meeting. I brought Patty, my corporate attorney's sister, and one of her colleagues, a negotiations specialist. The gaming company wanted to buy the patents for $120 million, knowing they could resell it for much, much more. I turned them down. I wanted to sell them the rights to use my design for 10 years for $50 million plus a 1% share on all products using my technology. After several hours, we compromised. $65 million, 5% over 10 years. Contracts were signed, deals sealed with a handshake. I was now quite wealthy, even after taxes. But I wasn't done. I made similar agreements with major military aircraft suppliers, civil aviation companies, and even a big car manufacturer. In total, I was now worth over $250 million after taxes, with projections showing over $350 million in 10 years. I could hardly believe it. I sought advice on investing wisely. Even just leaving it in the bank would earn me over $12 million before taxes. Amy and I were living together now. She'd rented out her apartment. Patty was dating another attorney, things were getting serious for her too. It had been just over a year since I left Texas. I felt it was time to confront those who had hurt me. I talked to Amy. She replied, "Go for it, and let me know if you need help." We brainstormed, but eventually decided to wait a little longer. Just after dinner, the phone rang. It was the assistant district attorney from Freestone, Texas. They'd caught the men who attacked me. They wanted me to speak in court in 3 weeks. "Yes, of course," I said. When the time came, Amy insisted on coming. So, we decided to make it a little vacation, arriving a week early. We flew 1,600 miles to Texas. Phil picked us up from the airport, took us to our hotel. To thank them, we took Phil and Cam out to dinner at a really nice restaurant. Cam and Amy looked stunning in their dresses. Phil wore his best suit. I had on my new Italian suit. We looked like well-off tourists. None of us had ever been to this restaurant before. It was too expensive before my recent good fortune. We arrived in a limousine. I wanted it to be special for Phil and Cam. A doorman opened the doors for us. Inside, the head waiter greeted us, showed us to our seats. A pianist played gentle music. Cam and Phil were excited. We ordered a light appetizer, then our main dishes, finishing with fruit salad and dessert wine. As we wrapped up our wine, looking forward to dancing, I noticed Jen and her husband Carl sitting across the restaurant with another couple. I pointed them out. Amy said she needed to go to the restroom. Cam followed her. Of course, to get to the restroom, they had to walk past Jen's table. I watched as Amy stopped, said hello to Jen, and pointed to Phil and me. Jen looked surprised, covering her mouth. Then Amy said something that made Cam laugh, and they walked away. Jen then stood up, hurried out of the restaurant with Carl. When the ladies returned, I asked what Amy had said to make Jen react like that. Cam explained that after Amy greeted Jen, she asked who she was with. Amy replied, "I'm with another millionaire sitting over there," pointing at me. She added, "I should thank you for leaving your husband. We were meant for each other. I just don't see what you see in this guy. You definitely made a downgrade." Then she walked away. We spent the rest of the night dancing and laughing about Amy's encounter with her sister. Since Cam and Phil had to work, Amy and I did some sightseeing. We spent a day at a ranch, learned to handle different types of firearms. I was surprised to find Amy was much more skilled than I was. In the evenings, we went out to eat and dance. The night before the trial, we had dinner at Phil and Cam's. A home-cooked meal is always better. After dinner, Phil shared exciting news. Eric, his son, was marrying his fiancée in the spring. We all raised our glasses to celebrate. Before the trial started, we met with the assistant district attorney Aita. He said the case was strong. They'd found the leader of the group, thanks to the DNA I provided. The man had a long history, third strike. He agreed to testify against his 2 friends, also in custody. Their trial would follow. The ADA mentioned one of the men I'd injured was still suffering, but none of them would say anything about Carl Prescott. They seemed scared, probably because Prescott had influenced them. We attended all 3 trials. I was pleased with the outcomes. The leader got a reduced sentence of 15 years for his cooperation. The man I had injured got 2 years since he hadn't actively participated in the attack. The other friend received 5 years as it was his first offense. Phil and Kim drove us to the airport. As we said our goodbyes, I handed Phil an envelope, asking him not to open it until we were in the air. Inside were the deeds to my old house, a wedding gift for his son. I knew how delicate marriage promises could be. When we got home, I went to my office and called Patty, inviting her out for dinner on Friday night, keeping it a surprise from Amy. Friday came, and I told Amy we were going out with Patty and her boyfriend. She was thrilled. That evening, a limousine picked us up, took us to a beautiful restaurant I'd reserved weeks earlier. After a wonderful meal, a musician approached our table, played a romantic song on his violin. As everyone watched, I got down on one knee and proposed to Amy. The joy on her face was priceless. She said yes through happy tears, and the whole restaurant cheered. Patty came over to hug Amy, warmly welcoming her to the family. We danced the night away before the limo took us home. The wedding was planned for early spring. I stayed out of the planning, letting Amy and Patty handle everything. It was at a local church, and I covered expenses for all the out-of-town guests, booking an entire floor of the Hilton. The wedding was a grand celebration. Everyone had a great time. Phil and Kim said they hadn't had so much fun in years, and invited us to their son's wedding in 2 months. Amy and I enjoyed a 2-week cruise around the Caribbean. All the dancing and activities had us returning tired, feeling like we needed another vacation. I had set up a team to handle any issues with my new program and hardware, so I didn't have much to do. I started thinking about the next part of my plan. I was being patient, no need to rush. 9 months after we got back, our son James was born. A year later, his sister Sarah came along. We moved into a bigger house, still in the safe community. By then, I had become quite wealthy, even a bit of a public figure, attending charity events and donating generously. People started noticing us in social magazines, calling us the perfect couple. As time passed, I never forgot my plan. What they had done to me still hurt. Now, nearly 9 years after my ex-wife left me, it was time to put my first phase into action. For the past 5 years, I had hired a private investigator to gather information on Jen and Carl, and anyone close to them, especially her former boss, Troy Simmons. I thought Troy might be the father of Jen's twins. The investigator found some surprising information. First, the twins did belong to Troy, just as I suspected. Second, Jen was still in contact with Troy, along with 2 other men. Third, Carl was involved with his assistant and various others while he was away. I set my plan into motion. I sent Carl proof that the twins were not mine, along with a note explaining the situation. This showed that Jen had been unfaithful to both me and Carl at the same time. I also included details about her other relationships to make it even more impactful. Then I waited. About 2 months later, Phil called. Carl had kicked Jen out and used their adoption agreement to keep the children. Jen left with nothing. No one knew where she was. Amy called her parents. Her dad mentioned he had sent her some money and told her not to reach out again. Phase 1 was complete. Jen now understood how it felt to be betrayed and lose her children. I thought she might still have her laptop as her email was active. I decided to stir things up a bit and sent her the investigator's report about Carl, along with some photos of him with others. This might complicate her divorce even more. A few days later, while Amy and I were watching an old movie, the security gate intercom buzzed. The guard on duty asked if Mrs. Prescott could come to our house. I told him to hold on, checked with Amy. She looked as confused as I felt, but said, "Let's hear what she has to say." I told the guard to let her in. A few minutes later, a knock. Amy opened it, and in stepped a woman who looked completely distraught. Her hair was messy. Her clothes looked like she hadn't changed in days. Amy invited her in. As she stepped inside, I noticed she couldn't meet my gaze. Amy offered her coffee, and she gratefully accepted. She sat across from me, still avoiding eye contact. I decided to start. I was really upset with her, but I couldn't help feeling a bit sorry for the sad person in front of me. I felt a pang of guilt for my part in how she'd ended up, until I remembered the hurt she had caused me. "You look unwell. What happened to you?" That question broke her. She cried for about 10 minutes before she could speak. Then, through her tears, she tried to explain. "He found out the twins weren't yours, and that I'd been seeing Troy while I was with him. It didn't take long for him to figure it out. Then he discovered I was still seeing Troy after we got married. He got really upset and asked me to leave. I only had on what I was wearing at the time. Fortunately, I still had my car keys and some money in my account. So I found a room at a motel, but no one wanted to talk to me after everything that happened. I had no friends, and my family wanted nothing to do with me. I tried calling his father, Barry. He told me he didn't need me anymore since he had a new heir. I called my dad, and he finally agreed to help. He sent me some money but told me not to reach out again. I had nowhere else to go, so I used my last bit of money to come here, hoping Amy would assist me. I know you wouldn't want to help me, and I don't blame you. I'm really sorry for how I acted. I was selfish and hurtful, and I deserve what happened to me, but I miss my kids, and I want them back. I may not have been a good wife, but I tried to be a good mother." She paused, looking at us with a sad expression. Even though I could tell she had prepared her words, what she said was mostly true. Despite my anger, I felt some sympathy for her. I also felt frustrated with Carl for being the cause of my pain. I would deal with him later. Amy then asked Jen if she was hungry. Jen replied she hadn't eaten in 2 days. Amy went to the kitchen and made her some breakfast. Jen ate quickly, asked for more coffee, which Amy poured. After that, Amy showed her to a guest bedroom so she could shower. While Jen was in there, Amy found some clothes that would fit her. While Jen was getting ready, Amy and I talked what to do with our unexpected guest. Amy said even though they weren't close, she felt compelled to help because Jen was her sister. I agreed, to some extent, mainly because it would infuriate Carl to see Jen getting back on her feet. We decided to put Jen in the guest bedroom until we figured things out. Tomorrow, Amy would take her to Walmart for essentials. Jen came downstairs looking much better. We gave her the good news. She started to cry again. Soon after, we all went to bed. Amy and I talked late into the night, making plans. I usually got up early to work out, but Jen beat me to it. She had coffee ready and toast made. Amy was already eating. I joined them. Jen sat down. Mark, I really didn't expect this kind of welcome. I'm so grateful. I don't know what to say. Jen, what you did was very hurtful, and you now see how much it affected your family. I think you understand the pain you caused me. However, thanks to Amy and the love we share, I believe I can forgive you. I will never forget what happened, but I won't focus on it anymore. I don't want you to apologize anymore. That part of our lives is done, and a new chapter has begun. I want you to go shopping with Amy this morning while I look for a place for you to stay. Today's trip to Walmart is just for the essentials, but later we can find you more fitting clothes. Now I'm off to the gym. See you later. When I returned home, the girls were out, the kids at school. I began searching for a place for Jen. On a whim, I called the housing officer for our community. He had a one-bedroom starter home available for rent, 2 streets away. I checked it out. Fully furnished, ready to move in. The owner was an army officer on a 3-year assignment in Europe. I paid the rent for a year, plus a deposit. When the girls came back with plenty of clothes, I shared the good news. Amy smiled. Jen hugged me tightly, thanking me through her tears. Then she looked at me. I really don't know what I was thinking when I messed up our marriage. I should have never let you go. Amy, please take care of him. You will never find a better man, and I know I won't. Then she ran upstairs to compose herself. While we were alone, I shared my plans with Amy to help Jen, and to get back at Carl and his father. The next day, we shopped for necessities for Jen's new place. Loaded Amy's van with supplies, arranged for the rest to be delivered. I wasn't sure there was enough space, but the girls managed to find a place for everything. It reminded me of Hermione's magical bag. To help Jen feel independent, we decided to support her financially. We gave her $10,000 for her checking account and a credit card with a $1,000 limit each month. More tears and hugs. Later that night, Amy told me she was proud of me for being supportive to Jen. I just hoped Jen had learned her lesson. The next day, we helped Jen settle in. She wanted to do all the cleaning herself. Then she invited us over for dinner. She wanted to cook something special. We left the kids with a babysitter, walked the short distance to her home. She served a wonderful meal: roast beef, baked potatoes, mixed vegetables, including my favorite green beans with carrots and parsnips topped with garlic butter and honey, wrapped in foil and baked. For dessert, a baked apple with raisins and ice cream. We left very full. In the following weeks, Jen continued to settle in. Amy and I decided to help her with her divorce, so I made an appointment with a lawyer Patty recommended. I arrived on time. The lawyer, Brian Scott, introduced himself. I explained Jen's situation. While he wasn't happy with how she had treated me, he agreed to take her case. We weren't worried about payment. I had that covered. Our main goal: help Jen get her children back. I told Brian that I had allowed Carl to adopt the children. He said that could be a significant problem. So I shared my idea. I explained I'd been offered $2 million for the children but turned it down. I'd allowed Carl to adopt them without expecting money in return, but I wanted $10 million as a settlement for mistreatment from both Carl and an advertising company. They agreed to keep the company's name out of the divorce, and I signed an agreement to keep that deal private. If I broke it, I'd repay the money. Brian asked if I could prove the children were not mine. I showed him the DNA reports, indicating the biological father was actually Troy Simmons. So, the adoption was not valid. Carl had no legal claim to the children, meaning Jen could potentially get them back. I wasn't doing this just to help Jen. It would also affect Carl and his father. But I had no intention of harming the children. I knew they were cared for, but they simply needed someone who shared their last name to keep the family business going. Brian said I could count on him and would update me later. That night, I shared what I had done with Amy, and she fully supported my decision. So, we invited Jen over. She seemed a little nervous until I explained my plan. She expressed her gratitude, prompting a moment of reflection for both of us, and we quickly reassured each other. A few days later, Brian called, asked me to come to his office, bringing Jen. All three of us met with him. He explained his plan. 1. He would file a request to end the adoption. 2. He would contact the district attorney's office to report that both Carl Prescott and his father, Barry Prescott, tried to illegally adopt 2 children, breaking the law. 3. He would state that they pressured Mr. Mark Adams into allowing the adoption because he was not their biological father and could not legally give permission. DNA tests would support this claim. 4. Mrs. Prescott would ask for her children to be returned immediately as they were being held against her wishes. 5. He would begin legal action for Mrs. Prescott against Mr. Troy Simmons for pressuring Mrs. Adams into an inappropriate situation related to her job. 6. He would also take action against Mr. Carl Prescott for pressuring Mrs. Adams, affecting her personal life. 7. He would start legal proceedings for Mrs. Prescott against XYZ Advertising for allowing and promoting this unacceptable behavior. As the CEO, Mr. Carl Prescott and other executives were aware of and supported the situation that arose, impacting Mrs. Adams' marriage. 8. He would begin a case for Mr. Mark Adams against Mr. Troy Simmons for contributing to difficulties in his marriage. 9. He would also take action against Mr. Carl Prescott for causing damage to Mr. Adams' marriage. 10. Finally, he would pursue legal action for Mr. Adams against XYZ Advertising for not enforcing their ethical standards and employee contracts. Mr. Simmons was involved in an inappropriate relationship with Mrs. Adams, and there seemed to be no consequences. Mr. Adams believed they didn't uphold their own standards and inadvertently encouraged the problematic situation, which led to challenges in Mr. and Mrs. Adams' marriage. Brian stated that Mr. Mark Adams knew he had signed a contract promising to keep certain information confidential in exchange for $10 million. If he breached that promise, he would need to repay the amount. Mr. Adams was prepared to honor his commitment and pay the $10 million as the contract required. After reading Brian's proposal about how to address the situation with XYZ Advertising, Troy, Carl, and his father Barry would be shocked. This was a plan of retribution I hadn't even fully anticipated. I informed Jen to prepare for difficult times, as she was partly responsible. She accepted her role. I asked Brian to proceed as soon as possible. I also planned to share what I had learned about XYZ with the media, targeting Troy Simmons, Carl Prescott, Barry Prescott, and XYZ Advertising. Brian said he'd be ready in 2 weeks, and I would share my story a week after that. Meanwhile, Brian would work to get Jen's children back. When we left Brian's office, I felt hopeful and determined to seek justice. Brian attempted to recover the children, but Carl and Barry engaged several lawyers to oppose him. In the second week of this effort, Brian commenced the next phase of his plan. As agreed, a week later, I sent all the information I had gathered to various media outlets. This accelerated the process. Once the media learned of the story, they swarmed outside the courthouse and the homes of those involved. As anticipated, many clients of XYZ Advertising either canceled their contracts or threatened to do so. This prompted an emergency meeting for XYZ's board, resulting in Troy Simmons being dismissed without severance pay. Both Carl and Barry Prescott had to resign to mitigate the loss of their valuable clients. They also agreed to offer a significant settlement to both Jen and me. With the anticipated settlement from my other legal actions, I would more than cover the $10 million I owed for not remaining silent. Out of all this chaos came an unexpected outcome for the people of America. Congressman Barry Prescott had to resign due to health issues, especially since his campaign focused on family values. Shortly after his resignation, questions arose about how he had used his campaign funds. He had used campaign money for a vacation cruise and hired various services while on the campaign trail. Now he had to go in front of a special committee to explain his actions, and the FBI was also interested. Less than a month after I spoke to the press, all the issues were resolved. Jen's children were returned to her. Soon after, Amy and I took Jen and the kids to her parents' house for a meeting to help everyone feel better. I told her parents that I had forgiven Jen, and while we were not exactly friends, we were at least on good terms. I hoped they could forgive her too. The fact that they were seeing their grandchildren for the first time made the moment even more special. Barry Prescott was found guilty of misusing campaign funds and served 3 years in prison. I finally got back at Carl Prescott for his wrongdoings. He was found guilty of attempting to buy 2 babies and misappropriating company funds. They discovered 2 secret bank accounts filled with money transferred from his office. I wondered how that happened. He received 5 years in prison, 2 years longer because he wouldn't disclose the whereabouts of the other missing funds. The truth was, he didn't know. I had arranged for them to be concealed. As a final act of retribution for what he did to me, I facilitated his placement with a problematic inmate. Jen moved to a bigger house, passed her bar exams, and worked at the same law firm as Patty. We sometimes watched each other's children, but never spent time together outside of that. To this day, Jen hasn't gone on any dates. She is focused on her job and taking care of her children. It's strange how life turns out. My world fell apart, but in the ashes of betrayal, I found something far more beautiful and real. Justice, yes, but also a deep love with Amy, and a family that truly means the world to me. I learned that sometimes, the greatest betrayals lead to the most unexpected blessings, and that true strength isn't just about fighting, but about rebuilding with purpose and fierce, quiet determination. Thanks for listening. Take care.